What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the VAR You Serious podcast. Here's my dad, Mike. My name's Dylan. Hope you guys are enjoying this and a beautiful weekend of football as always. Dad, we enjoyed quite the win this morning.
Yeah, I've got my old super yellow Arsenal shirt from about, 15 years ago. I was reminding you that maybe we have to find the picture that we were full kit wankers that Christmas when we had this jersey and the yellow shorts and the whole 9 yards.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's getting a little tight in the tummy for me. So you may be inheriting this bad boy sooner rather than later.
It's a good kid. It reminds me of Ozil. That's the player I think of first when I see it. So
Yeah. Well, it's
it's
it's a nice
good kid.
yellow. It's actually old school California Golden Bears color before they kind of changed their blue to a darker blue. Speaking of college sports, obviously. But yeah, I don't like the whole bruised banana yellow thing that they do. And yeah, anyway.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, I got the West Ham kid on today. Had to show some respect. Haven't put on the jersey in a while, and then they've been playing all right. So yeah, it was quite the week of football. I feel like things are kind of heating up, especially in the Premier League on both ends of the table, and really across all the European leagues. Dad, I don't know if you noticed the same thing, but there's really a lot more going on than I think meets the eye, right?
For sure. It's once again, close title races are good for soccer. Close relegation battles are good for soccer. I know you're hoping your Hammers there can jump ahead of Tottenham sooner rather than later to safety. We're going to talk about three of the leagues today. A lot of familiar faces in there, which is kind of one of the things I've talked about before as being a problem, but there is one team that would not necessarily be considered a familiar face, so we'll definitely talk about that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think familiar faces all around. Definitely some teams that haven't won it in a while, though. So to your point, Dad, let's jump right into that because across some of the major European leagues, we have some really close title races. We've obviously talked in depth about the Arsenal and City title race, which we will get into. But we've also seen across Europe, Barcelona and Real Madrid are close to the top of La Liga. And then in Ligue 1, we have PSG leading Lens by only 2 points. So we're finally seeing some competitiveness across all leagues, I think, which is exciting. But let's start with La Liga, Dad. I think that'd be an interesting place to start, especially with kind of what's going on right now with both clubs. Barcelona kind of needed to cash in. They haven't quite gotten clicking yet this season in any competition, but they're still there and they're at the top right now. Whereas Real Madrid have seemingly been in the headlines every week. What do you think about the race in La Liga right now?
Well, as we've discussed, Real Madrid has been in the headlines often for, in many cases, the wrong reasons. And so the fact that it's still close, I think, speaks to a close race, speaks to the fact that Real Madrid is just such a good team. I'm not saying Barcelona aren't good. They're in first place, right? They're above Real Madrid right now. But can you imagine if Real Madrid gets their act together, gets a little consistency of form, a little consistency of attitude? I think they could pull away from Barcelona if that happens. That's a big if.
Yeah, I think it's tough to call, right? Because Real Madrid could kick into gear for sure, but Barcelona as well, you'd argue have the more experienced manager in Hansi Flick, whereas, Real Madrid kind of technically have a caretaker manager in Arbeloa. And Barcelona did win the league last year, if I'm not mistaken. So they're looking to repeat. They know how to win La Liga. They've looked the more consistent in the league. But I think the interesting thing about both teams is they're fighting on all fronts, like most of these title challengers are. So what squad is going to be able to get it done? And what I've seen, Dad, and I don't know if you've seen this, but Barcelona have had quite a frail team. I mean, they're missing Pedri. They were missing Rafinha for a large part of the season. Lots of injury issues. Do you think that could play into it? As Real Madrid, I don't think have had as many issues as Barcelona.
Absolutely. I mean, I've already discussed like many others on social media, the idea that injuries have played a role in why Arsenal has struggled to keep their lead over Man City. And I think it's the same thing with Barcelona. Injuries matter. It's not excuses, right? I'm well aware of the fact that some of these other teams are playing well. I'm not trying to take anything away from them. But yeah, the kinds of injuries that have been stacking up for teams like Arsenal and Barcelona, it keeps the race closer than it probably would be otherwise. And to say any different is just not looking at reality. I mean, if Man City, I mean, they've had a fair number of injuries as well, but not like Arsenal. And I've already given them credit for adding 2 quality players in the January window to improve their depth, right? So that's shout out to City. But yeah, injuries are going to make a difference for Arsenal, Barcelona, any team, especially, yeah, if you're fighting in multiple competitions still.
Absolutely. And I think, Dad, shifting since you were talking about them as well, a little bit to the Premier League here. Arsenal and City, once again in a close situation. Arsenal leading, City chasing this time. What do you think the psychological advantage or disadvantage it is for Arsenal to have played an extra game at this stage over City? Do you think it benefits one team over the other?
If it does, it's not much. There's still, it's interesting. I feel like the last like 5 or 6 weeks, really this whole 2026 calendar year, it's been like this sense of the season's almost over. And like, it's not at all. There's still, what, 10 more games in the Premier League?
I think 11.
And so there's a lot of soccer left to be played. And so, God, who knows what's going to happen? Honestly, for me, I've gotten ahead of myself. I think a lot of people around the world have gotten ahead of themselves with a lot of these leagues. A lot can still change over the next 10 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely, Dad. And I think, like I said too, these teams are all fighting on all fronts for the most part in these title races. So I think the season feels accelerated because of how many games everyone's playing. Also, I think the storylines and everything is getting skewed because teams are able to be more inconsistent because there's so many games. I mean, let's be honest, the matter of the fact is you simply can't win every game in today's day and age.
You can't. And while people would love to see their team win every game, it's not going to happen. I mean, yeah, Arsenal blew it against Wolves midweek. But then again, and I think I texted you this, Villa, I think they drew Leeds and Chelsea drew Burnley. I mean, it happens. Like when you play 50, 60, 70 matches, like you are going to lose, or I mean, it's like a draw is not the end of the world. And I realize Arsenal fans were freaking out because City were within 2 points until that huge win up at Hotspur Stadium today. But yeah, people have just got to give their teams a bit of slack.
Absolutely, and I don't think we're seeing teams of old that are dominating every single match. It's just simply not going to happen. And Dad, to your point, I think draws need to be seen as results. Maybe it could be a bad result in context of the game, right? Like that's always a thing. But teams are going to slip up this day and age because the competition is much closer. And swiftly kind of transitioning here onto our third league that's close, PSG are only ahead of Lens by 2 points. Lens were on top going into this weekend, but lost 3-2 to a revitalized Monaco team that took PSG close in the Champions League this week as well too. This is showing how close these matches really are, regardless of what you think of every team in the table. You know, Arsenal should have beat Wolves, should have beat them in game context. Wolves is not a bad football team. They've had a bad season. There are quality players in that team that will be in the Premier League again next year, no matter what, on a different
Yeah.
squad.
Yeah.
And it goes to the French league too. Lens, you know, wasn't expected to be at the top again this season, but they are. And they slipped to a good team in Monaco who's in the Champions League. You know, and we're seeing this across all the divisions. And my underdog, which we'll get on to later, you know, did topple Real Madrid this week as well. You know, so these teams are dropping points all over the place, Dad. Do you think it's something that's going to continue? Because I do. I don't see a perfect finish to the season for anyone.
I think it's pretty unlikely. I mean, I'm excited to have Lawns in the discussion. The last 5, 10, 15 years, Lawns has not been in the discussion on a regular basis. And so it's nice to have a team that you wouldn't necessarily expect to be up there on a consistent basis. So that's fun. I mean, in some ways of these three leagues right now, I'm kind of rooting for Lawns more in a weird way because it'd be fun to see them. I always talk about how I want teams that aren't, PSG, that aren't, Bayern Munich is what, 10 points ahead of Dortmund in the Bundesliga. Like, you kind of want to see these teams rise up consistently doing well. And I mean, you ask here, is PSG vulnerable? I mean, probably a little bit. I think everyone's vulnerable. Like you said, there's no team out there really showing that they can just pull away. I mean, Bayern over in the Bundesliga, I'm sorry, that's a weaker league. And so they're pulling away
Yes.
because it's a weaker league. Not so in the three leagues we're focusing on today.
Yeah, I think you're hitting the nail on the head, Dad. And PSG just went and did it last season. They did dominate somehow on all fronts and won, I believe, 5 trophies, which is unbelievable. And it just shows you can't do that every year, right? Teams can't do it every year. They can't do it every month. They can't do it every week. They can't do it every game, right? I think that's the simple thing. They're human beings. They lose focus. They get off the plot a little bit. Things happen, right? But Dad, what I kind of want to do here to wrap up this segment, we've touched on all 3 of the leagues. Obviously, La Liga is close. The Premier League is close. Ligue 1 is close. I want us to try and predict at least what we envision potentially happening in all 3 leagues. And we'll kind of go back and forth. So I think we start with La Liga here, being that it's 2 giants that have both won titles recently.
Yeah, let's do this sort of quick style here. I'm just going to give you my 3 right in a row.
Okay.
I just thought about it. Bam, bam, bam. I'm going to go Real Madrid, Arsenal, PSG.
Gotcha. I think that's great. I'm going to differ from you a little bit. I think Barcelona get it done in the league. Arsenal will get it done as well, finally. And then Lens is going to pull back against PSG. The reason I don't think Real Madrid and PSG will win, Dad, I actually think they're both going to do better in the Champions League, personally. I think both squads are built more for that rather than their domestic leagues this year. Whereas I think Barcelona, Arsenal, they're kind of more built for their league. And then, of course, I want to predict Lens to win Liga. I think it'd be great. They haven't won in 28 years, so it'd be great to see them lift it, just as it would be for Arsenal as well.
All righty. Let's move on to our underdogs of the week. Do you want to go ahead and go first this time?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I touched on mine briefly in the last segment here, but Osasuna beating Real Madrid 2-1 at home with a 90th minute winner. Obviously, as we were just saying, huge swing in the title race that matters for that other team, right? And Osasuna, more of a mid-table team, getting the job done at home, showing that they have ambition to probably climb the table, maybe sneak a European spot. I think this is great. Like, it shows no team is having an easy go at things, and Osasuna is one of those teams making it more difficult. So credit to Osasuna on that 90th minute winner, getting the dub. I could see them climbing up the table. They're not that far off of European places, so would be fun to see them go on.
All righty. Well, I am going to come home. MLS started their season yesterday, and our Rapids play this evening up in Seattle. But my underdog of the week is DC United. Big 1-0 win over Philadelphia Union. DC United, literally last place in the Eastern Conference last year. Philadelphia Union won the Supporters Shield last year, so clearly opposite ends of the spectrum. DC United pull off the big victory, game 1 of the season. A little fun note in there is that the guy who scored the goal for DC United, Ty Parabo, played for, and I believe was the leading scorer for the Philadelphia Union last year. So shout out to DC United and the MLS season opener.
No, I love it, Dad. And yeah, MLS just kicking off. It's exciting. For people that don't know, too, just so we kind of be clear here, the Supporters Shield is the regular season trophy, per se, in MLS for the team who's accumulated the most points in the regular season before the playoffs. So we're talking 1 to 15, I believe here, Dad. So big underdog to start the MLS season off there.
Huge.
And I think we're gonna
Alrighty.
stick with MLS, Dad. It
Yes,
looks
let's do
like it,
that.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
might as well. I think there was a game last night with a little bit of controversy around it. A big match. Let me just set the scene here, Dad. LAFC hosting Inter Miami in the Rose Bowl. 75,000 people present. I want everyone to hear that. 75,000 people at a game in the United States in the middle of February. Things are getting bigger over here, folks. I know it's
Well,
messy. I know it's
it is
fun.
Los Angeles, so it's warmer. But yeah, I think it's the largest regular season MLS crowd ever. Something like that.
It was second. It was second behind LAFC against LA Galaxy, also at the Rose Bowl last year.
Gotcha. There you
So
go.
quite a big game. Obviously, season opener. Inter Miami had won the MLS Cup last year. LAFC come out, dominate the match 3-0. Complete blow pass Inter Miami. But Dad, here's where things get saucy. And we were talking about this earlier a little bit. Messi caught on video following referees into an unmarked room, it seems, at the stadium. And seemingly, our favorite guy, Luis Suarez, actually trying to pull him back from this room, but failing to do so. Then, just to add the last layer here, MLS comes out today denying any wrongdoing on Messi's part, and he did not enter any restricted space. Is it just me, or are you having a hard time believing that?
I can only watch a video. I thought it was hysterical that Suarez, of all people, was the peacemaker there. But good for him, right? I guess we need to give him credit where credit's due.
For sure.
But yeah, I believe that Messi did not go technically into the referee's locker room or whatever we're calling it. I'm guessing he did stop short. He was only in there for 8 seconds, whatever they counted. The fact that this is a bad look. This is a bad look for MLS. The best player in the league, perhaps the best player in the world right now, even at his advanced age, seeking the referees out, even if he stopped himself ultimately, Suarez, security might have been there. The fact that he was looking to do that, that is a bad example for young people in America. To see a guy who's usually a pretty mild-mannered person going after the refs at all after the first game of the season, that to me is problematic. And I think MLS wants this to go away quickly, and it should not.
No, it absolutely shouldn't, Dad. And I completely agree with you there. I think the most interesting thing about this situation is that I didn't watch the match, unfortunately. So I can't comment on what the refs are doing, the ref performance. So I'm not going to comment on that. The match was 3-0. Miami, from a stats perspective, did not look like they were in the game.
Mm-mm.
So to me, that kind of says the refs really weren't the reason you lost. And I don't think you need to make it about that. And to your point, it's all about intent. Messi had the intent. I don't know what he was going to do, yell at them, whatever. He had the intent to go in there and disrespect the officials for the job they had to do, which he can't do. He knows that. He's been in the game longer than most people in that league. He should know better. I completely agree. One other little point I want to touch on. Matt Miazga, or Miyazaga, however you say his name, I kind of forgot.
Yeah.
USMNT player occasionally went and did the same thing last year and got a 3-match suspension for
Right.
it. Does that change kind of our opinion on how this should have been handled, or is it just messy?
Well, I mean, apparently, Miazga actually went into the referee's room. And so if he went in there where Messi stopped short, I can see why MLS is saying there's a difference there. And there is. I'm
For
just
sure.
thinking, to me, in some ways, with Messi, I almost would rather a guy say something to a ref, challenge a ref on the field or whatever in public. To me, this felt sneaky, like Messi was going to maybe try to sneak in there when the cameras are around, trying to kind of, sustain his public image. But I'm going to go in there, I'm going to give them an earful. To me, this is problematic. Something should be done, whether it's a 1-game suspension or Messi coming out and saying, you know what? I didn't go in, but I really shouldn't even have tried to do that. To me, this is poor sportsmanship. And like you said, it's pretty clear that the refs were not the reason Inter Miami lost yesterday.
Absolutely not. And yeah, Dad, you make a great point of how it was slimy. It was a little shady to go in there after the match, not on the field even saying anything. Going after and doing that, it gives the league a bad look. And we've talked plenty already on this podcast about leagues doing shady stuff behind the scenes. The whole gambling thing in Turkey, what have it all over the world, that goes on corruption wise. You really want the face of the league getting caught on video going in to the referee room and then saying he did nothing wrong. I think it shows a little bit of a lack of pressure from MLS. And maybe he didn't break any rules, but it's a bad look regardless, Dad. Do you have a verdict on this? I don't know how you feel, but
I mean, I think by letter of the law, probably no card here, no penalty. But because it's a bad look and it felt a little shady, I'm going to throw a yellow card at him. He should say
yeah.
something. He should acknowledge it, and then we can all move on.
Yeah, and maybe that's all it is. Maybe it's, hey, I was in the wrong there. But, to your point, he doesn't really do that. He very rarely speaks directly to the media, from what I can tell. I'm expecting that not to come. I mean, I'm personally just going to give it a red card because you don't do it. You don't go to the referees after the match, especially after you leave the field. The game's over. The referees aren't doing anything else. And if anything, you're staining your club, you're staining the league for what you're doing. I don't agree with it. And to your point that you brought up at the beginning, Dad, it's a bad example for people all over the United States, especially kids who are impressionable.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, we'll see what happens. Probably not a whole lot, but bad look on Messi. Hey, listen, he's allowed to have a bad day at the office. He's allowed to show a little bit of emotion or whatever, but there's probably just a better way to do it. That's all.
Yeah. Hey, everyone does have a bad day at the office. I get that. Everyone gets frustrated. It was a bad game for the team, right? So we'll see how they bounce back as the MLS season kind of continues here. But Dad, we're already on to the last segment of the episode here, parting shots this week. And I believe I'm asking you first.
Yep.
Big win today for the Arsenal. Are people overreacting about their most recent form?
It depends who you're talking about. Yeah, some of the folks that have bigger followings on social media, I think absolutely. I'm freaking out. You saw me as we watched the game today. I'm slamming tables and all this kind of stuff. I think people need to keep it in perspective. I'm sort of saying this to myself right now. But yeah, I mean, some of the crazy stories, some guy talking about maybe Raya should be benched, and then some of these people throwing out random rumors about Odegaard wanting to go to Man U. I realize some of these are detractors who are enjoying, Arsenal perhaps bottling the league, but it's also some of our own fans, our own people, and I think it's just like the team. I was telling you today, I think the team is just the nerves. It's getting to them. And I think it's definitely getting to me. And I think it's getting to a lot of Arsenal followers.
Absolutely. I think everyone needs to realize no title, no trophy in any sport is won in 1 week. It's never won in one game or 1 week or a string of form. It's a cumulative effort over 9 months, right? I think everyone is overreacting. Do you agree?
To some extent, yeah.
Awesome.
All right.
I see your point.
First question for you today. Who has more to lose without Champions League next season? Liverpool, Man U, or Chelsea?
Ooh. I think you'd have to say Liverpool. Not having Champions League would be extremely detrimental to them next season. I mean, they obviously had the money, but spent a huge outlay this past summer on a lot of big time players. If you don't have Champions League next season for them, what's in their heads, right? I mean, it's their fault that they didn't get in, but what's in their heads after that, right? Then what are you doing to rectify that financial situation? How are you going to make sure you're in the profit and sustainability rules and financial fair play? How are you going to deal with these things that we've seen some of these organizations take action on now? And do you start seeing Liverpool drift in to what's happened to Manchester United and Spurs and some of these other teams in recent years? Buying things doesn't mean you're going to be good. So not being in the Champions League, not getting that revenue, I think it hurt Liverpool the most, but it could definitely hurt Chelsea and Man U not to be in it now, especially with most likely 5 places available this year.
Well, and a couple quick things. Just I want to give a shout out to Liverpool ownership for not getting rid of Slot yet. I don't think that would have changed the course of their season at all. So good for them. Not pulling the rug from out from underneath him and switching managers. Mid season, and also the idea that Liverpool, Man U, whatever. Especially Man U, they're going to be looking for a manager unless they really think they're going to stick with Michael Carrick and. You need a Champions League to attract the best candidates. So we'll see how that turns out.
Especially if they want a Luis Enrique or some of the names that have been floating around, right? So I think Chelsea least affected. They're just kind of bankrolled, and I don't see any issues. They're more run like a business, anyways. So they'd probably be pissed off. But anyways, next question here, Dad. Will Bodo Glimt continue their fairy tale run after beating Inter Milan 3 week?
Yes, for a little bit more time. I think they'll find a way because they've already beaten Inter once. They have to go to Milan this week. I think they'll find a way to win on aggregate and get through. And then I think it's a hell of a run, but I think that run comes to an end in the final 16.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd have to agree with you. I just think, knockout football could be interesting. I could see it continuing to go. I mean, they've beaten City, they've beaten Atletico Madrid, they've beaten Inter now. To be fair, though, I think all at home. No, never mind. They beat Atletico on the road. But still, we'll see how far it goes. I hope it continues for their sake.
All right, next one for you. Will the Premier League be represented in all 3 major European finals this season?
Okay, Conference League is just Crystal Palace in there. Europa League, Forest and Villa are still in it. And then Champions League, I think there's 5 teams or 6 teams. I
A
think
lot.
every single English team made it through at least to this knockout phase, right? I mean, yeah. I think statistically, probability wise, there's going to be an English team in all 3 finals. Crystal Palace is probably the toughest one, but with the competition they're playing, you'd think they could make it to the final. It'll be tough, but I think they could do it. Then Europa League, Nottingham Forest or Villa will make it, and then Champions League, one of those big teams will make it, no doubt. So I'm going to say, yeah, there's going to be English representation again in all 3 finals.
All right. Well, somewhere we got to keep track of all this. Anyway, go ahead.
And the last question of the day, Dad, is Harry
No,
Kane?
no,
Oh,
no, last for me, but then you still have.
oh, I almost lost the other one because it looked like it was part of this question. Anyways, is Harry Kane the best English striker ever after passing 500 career goals?
I mean, I think there's a strong argument for that. I got to be honest. I mean, I wasn't watching English soccer back in the 40s and 50s and 60s. I wasn't even born until 1970.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure there are English people out there who would absolutely argue with us on this, that statistically Kane is there, but this person, that person did this, did that. I mean, to me, the guy is a hell of a player. Obviously, was not a fan of his while he was at Tottenham. Still not really a fan of his, but I can certainly respect his talent. So I think there's as good an argument as there is for anybody in English football history. And so, yeah, I'm going to say Harry Kane's the best English striker ever.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's a crazy statement. You could obviously bring in, if we're going all the way back, Sir Bobby Charlton. You could bring in Rooney, Lineker, Michael Owen. You could bring in so many different guys, but I mean, he's still going. He's at 500, but it's and counting. I mean, let's see how far it can go, right?
Exactly. And counting. And I'm sure there's some English folks out there who would talk about the fact that he has not won a World Cup And so if he's the best striker ever, why hasn't he carried us to a World Cup win? So that would probably be a fair argument. And yet I'm still saying he's the best striker in English history.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think trophies always factor into it, but he could still come back to the Premier League and break the all-time scoring record in the league. He could win a World Cup this summer. There's things he can still do, but I think he already is the best English striker as well. But we'll see what he continues to do.
All right, now we have the last question of the week. Who
Yes.
will win MLS this season?
That I honestly think we saw a potential MLS final, and we already talked about it. I think LAFC is going to win it this year. That attack looks frightening, to be honest. It looked frightening at the end of last season. I mean, Buanga and Son, and I can't remember the other guy who scored. I think it was Ortiz. I mean, the front line looks just flat out ridiculous, on par with Inter Miami's. And I think they're going to continue that throughout the season. So I'm saying LAFC, trophies coming back to LA, coming back to the West Coast.
Okay, I mean, we'll have plenty of time to talk. Don't forget Vancouver. Vancouver's a hell of a team. And San Diego FC, I think they're going to have a strong sophomore season. I can't remember who they played, but they blew somebody out 5-0 yesterday. So
Ooh, yeah, I saw
I
that.
like what you're saying there, but the West is going to be a battle this year.
I think the Rapids might win it. No, I'm kidding. They're not going to win it. We'll see. Let's start with a win against Seattle tonight. That would be a good start. We haven't done that in about 10 years. So
Nope.
maybe ever. I don't know. We don't win in Seattle.
Not usually. So,
Well,
alrighty.
great episode. I think we got a lot of topics covered there. Nerve-wracking title races. We're going to keep dealing with it as Arsenal fans, but let us know what you guys think. If we're talking about your team and you think we're wrong on something, you think we're right on something, let us know. We'd love to hear your opinion. And we're going to keep doing this and keep grinding until the end of the season and then to the World Cup of all things. But Dad, I had a great time this week. I hope you did too.
Absolutely. Subscribe, like, share, all those things, please. And we will see you again next week.
All right, guys, have a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.